begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our report out from closed session. Santanu Bandyopade has been placed on step C, retroactive to his starting date with YCCD. There are contract extensions of 1 year each for Susan Yeager and Santanu. There's a 2% raise for 2019 to 20 for the upper management group, VPs and above, starting July 1st, 2019. There is no raise for 2018-19. Mileage allowance for controllers and VPs has been discontinued. And the discussion regarding the chancellor's evaluation will continue next month because, as you can tell, we ran out of time. So that's the end of our report there. We have a new student trustee, and she is going to be sworn in, Savannah Overton.
Solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. I officially now declare you the student trustees of the Yosemite Community College Trust.
Thank you very much and welcome. Okay, so next up is approval of the minutes for the May 8th, 2019 Board of Trustees special meeting. Do I have a motion?
If there's no additions or corrections, I'll move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, so Abe made the motion, second by Nancy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, next up is 3.5, approval of the minutes of the May 8th Board of Trustees meeting, and I believe we do have an amendment there, which is on our desk, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
There's no,
there is an amendment.
there's no additions or corrections. I'll move that we accept the minutes of May 8th as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Abe first, Tony second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, any abstentions? Motion carries. So we're now up to public comments. Are there any public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Okay, that would be a no. So board committee reports. Darren, do you have a report for the finance committee?
I do. The Finance Committee met on Monday, June 3rd. Present was myself, Trustees Rojas and Aguilar. Basically, this month was just routine and customary business. Staff provided updates on our monthly financial status and our current FTE status. And then we spent most of the time going over the tentative budget for 2019-2020. So there really wasn't anything except routine and customary business. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain questions if anybody has any.
Okay, no questions, so let's move on to board policy committee report. Sorry, a gnat is coming after me. We did not meet. That is our report for this month. We're planning on meeting next month. Okay, so we are up to reports and information items. 5.1, presentation dual enrollment CCAP with Dr. Brandon Price. Or not? Oh, okay. You get it set up for him? Okay. So is Dr. Ruth Lumen here? There she is. All right, let's do this out of order. So we're on 5.2. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. My name is Ruth Lumen, and I teach in the English language department here at MJC. And I think I speak for all of our department members when I say that we feel it is our great joy and an enormous privilege to be able to work with our language learners here and walk alongside them to fulfill their American dream and become upwardly mobile through education. But that's not the only reason why we teach. Our goal really in teaching language is not necessarily assimilation, but critical engagement in community and the empowerment of their voices. And so one way that as a department we extend that education of empowerment is to offer classes within the community as a means to break down barriers to a college education. And that will really be the emphasis of this presentation tonight. But before I get there, I would like to just give a very brief overview of the programs that we do offer to English learners in the community and on campus, for those of you who may not be familiar. So one program that we offer is called English for Life and Work, and it's basically English language skills that are taught in the context of everyday life and work situations. These courses are geared specifically for newcomers to the United States to help them gain the basic interpersonal communication skills that they need to survive out in the community and also attain a job. We also offer language instruction for college, and these are academic English language skills geared for students who are more degree or transfer oriented. And these courses help prepare them to succeed in transfer level college courses. And so In regard to extending our instruction out into the community, this past semester, we have actually offered 11 off-site courses out in the community as of spring 2019, with more projected to be offered in the future out in the community. And some of the ways that we have been able to extend this education of English for life and work out in the community is to do some concerted and very consistent outreach through community events, as well as informational and assessment meetings at school sites, faith-based organizations, as well as nonprofit organizations. Some of the varied partnerships and classes that we currently have and have had out in the community include Waterford, Oakdale. We have several classes that go out in Oakdale. Escalon has several classes that meet during the semester. Salida has had a couple of classes that have met during various semesters. In Modesto, we have a number of partnerships. In fact, at the Islamic Center this next fall, we will be offering 4 classes there on site for newly arrived Afghan and Syrian refugees. Redeemer Church also hosts 2 classes of ours, and Centenary Church, which we'll be profiling a little bit more closely later in this presentation, also offers a class. And just this summer, 3 other organizations have approached us about offering classes at their sites in the fall. We have also done outreach, and we've been approached to offer some English courses at the Empire Migrant Camp. And the IRC, the International Rescue Committee, which is a refugee resettlement agency, has also recently approached us to offer a class at their office in Turlock beginning in the fall. And what makes the outreach and the personal follow-up with students possible is really the work of Mary Calderon, who heads the efforts in the English Language Learner Welcome Center to work with language learners, often in their native language, and help them individually with their college application, enrollment issues, general orientation, class registration, testing, and any sort of informal advising. For many newcomers to the area, the matriculation process to the college is often very foreign and confusing, and that's even without the added burden of the entire obstacle course really being in an entirely foreign language to them as well. And so the importance of the center for creating access and equity for language learners out in the community and on campus cannot be underestimated. In fact, while we cannot prove causation through data, we can definitely show a correlation of significant increase in student matriculation to the college since the Welcome Center was established. And so the Welcome Center was established in late spring 2016, and you can kind of see that there has been a gradual increase in FTS attainment and ELW class offerings since that period. Our summer sessions have also increased, and this graph does not include this summer's sessions, which have increased even over last summer. And I think probably the most noticeable increase is in the offerings of classes off-site. And the Welcome Center, their work has really facilitated the outreach there and the matriculation of students in the community into these classes. And so you can see from spring 2016 to now, there's been a very steady increase there. One off-site course that we would like to highlight is one that has taken place at Centenary Methodist, and this was a partnership between World Relief and Modesto Junior College and Centenary Methodist for newly arrived Afghan refugees. And I'm going to have you just watch a brief video that will explain that partnership and the highlights of that course. Oops, sorry. Oh, sorry. Just pause it. Sorry about that.
It's technology.
Let's try. No. Okay. We'll send you that video.
Okay.
Um, but in a nutshell, I will also be passing out, I have some handouts here that give information about our programs, about the English Language Learner Welcome Center, as well as comments from the Afghan women who wanted to let the board know what the impact was of the class on their own lives. And so later on, I hope to encourage you to view the video and see the impact of that offsite course on the students. And just as sort of a side note, as part of that partnership, many of these women could not attend class due to a lack of childcare. And so what Centenary Methodist did was they stepped up and organized and coordinated childcare for the parents while they were in class. But of course, this takes a decent amount of funding to support. And so as a group, as partners, World Relief, MJC, and Centenary Methodist, we put on an Afghan lunch fundraiser this past February and raised $8,000 to support childcare for the spring and through the fall. And we'll be doing another Afghan lunch fundraiser next February, the 23rd, 2020. So you're all invited, and I'll be sending out information if you would like to participate in that. Right now, what I would like to do is bring up Esmeralda Felix, who has been a student in our program and is a recent graduate in the respiratory care program. And she also works in the English Language Learner Welcome Center and can speak to the impact that language instruction has had on her life and her family's life, as well as the impact of the Welcome Center on students' lives and in the community as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Esmeralda Felix, and I'm a former student from the ELW program here at MGC. I don't know what I would have done if they wouldn't have this program here. When I recently arrived to the United States with no English at all, came to MJC. They have this wonderful program. Then I got to go to the ELEC program, which is a credit class program they have for ESL students, and got accepted on the respiratory care program. Was successfully completed a 2 years program here at MJC, and recently passed the national boards for respiratory care. So I'm already credentialed for that, for the respiratory care. And yes, the program is really good. I actually help at the EL Welcome Center, I'm sorry. And we do a lot for the students who recently come with no English. I've seen a lot of students out at the hospitals working out there who were former students as me, and always say thank you, because the Welcome Center has helped us a lot to reach our goals. So I want to thank you all for letting us to continue with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, were there any questions for Ruth? No? Okay. Thank you again. All right, so are we going to go back? Okay. We're going to go back in time to 5.1.
Forgot my flash drive, but I should have known that Graciela would have it all taken care of.
It's there.
Ran to grab it. Thank you. So I'm going to talk briefly about expanding dual enrollment opportunities in the Yosemite Community College District and Both Columbia College and Modesto Junior College have been working on trying to expand dual enrollment opportunities for our students. Patrick Bencourt couldn't be here tonight, but he sent along some information. So I think most folks are familiar with what dual enrollment is by this time, but really offering students an opportunity to complete college level coursework and earn college credits while they're still in high school. And there's a tremendous amount of benefits for dual enrollment from different research that has been shown. I've highlighted a few there. A chance to complete high school and college credits at the same time, of course, is a great benefit to the student. A smoother transition from high school to college, an accelerated pathway through college that saves students time and money. I can say as a parent, my son graduated from high school about a week ago, and he finished with about 30 units of college credit, and I really liked that as a parent, having 30 units already done of college when he graduated high school, so I can speak to that point of it. There's lots of different ways that a student can earn dual enrollment credit. We've always had this special admit process that the board approves where a principal can sign off and a student can come out at night to Columbia College or during the summer and take college classes. So all of these students are technically special admit students, but there's different types of special admit students. There's students that are in the middle college program so for example, they're Sonora High students, but they come out to Columbia College during the day and they take college classes during the day. More recently, we have the CCAP program where we actually offer our college classes in the high school and they're only open to the high school students. And so that's been a change. And of course, although technically not dual enrollment, students can also earn college credit through articulated coursework. So classes that they take at the high school that are articulated, and once they come to the college, they get college credit for those courses. So there's a lot of ways to earn college credit while you're in high school. And the research shows that this really makes the student more likely to come to college, but then to persist and to complete college if they get some of those units while they're in high school. So how are we doing? So here's some of the information that Patrick sent along from 17-18 to 18-19. We've seen this increase in courses. What I find really impressive here is it's not a huge increase in the number of courses, but if you look further down at the number of students that MJC is serving through their dual enrollment, they had a 71% increase in 1 year over the next in dual enrolled students. I think dual enrollment in general, this idea of dual enrollment has just really taken off statewide. It's becoming so popular, but that is quite impressive because without a lot of increase in courses, they've increased their efficiency so much, and you can see the bottom line of how much it increases the apportionment also. At Columbia College, I wanted to step back for just a moment and say, well, why is dual enrollment so important to us at Columbia College? And really, it's reports like this one that we see here, where it's like, a lot of times we talk about urban institutions and how, people not going to college, but really it's the rural high school graduate of all high school graduates that's the least likely to go to college. And so with that in mind, rural students aren't going to college. How do we get them to go to college? Well, they're going to high school. They're actually completing high school. Let's get them going to college while they're in high school. And so that's what we've made a real effort to do. Another reason that we see it being so important to get these students into college while they're still in high school is the fact that we have a declining number of high school graduates in our area. As you can see from the shaded yellow area there, we've gone from about 1,100 high school graduates in Calaveras and Tuolumne County down to 835 in this next year projected. So that's, I think it's a 23% decrease in the number of high school graduates. So if we're going to keep up our numbers and our enrollments as a college, it's the right thing to do to get students through, but it's also really important for the stability of our enrollment. And so we need to get more high school students to be going right into college. And you can see, contrast that with Stanislaus County, where you're seeing not a huge increase, but from 7,400 up to around 8,000 students. So slight increase in Stanislaus County, where we're seeing a pretty significant decrease, and then kind of a plateau now in Tuolumne County and Calaveras County. So how's it gone for us over the last 3 years? Again, it seems like it's a phenomenon that's really taking off. It's really been embraced in our community, the idea for dual enrollment. You see the counts there on the left are enrollment by term, and then the counts on the right, that's showing you how many unique students. So basically, how many students are engaged in dual enrollment at Columbia College per year. And so we've gone from 223 to 460. So we've more than doubled our dual enrolled students in the last 2 years. And then I did want to add one more thing. And going forward, we're seeing that there's so much demand. An example, yesterday I talked with the high school counselor about our fire program at Sonora High School, and she said, oh, well, we have a problem because I already have 43 students that have applied to be in the fire CCAP agreement. And we have 4 more high schools that are coming on with CCAPs next year: Amador, Argonaut, Waterford, Oakdale. So we're seeing a ton of demand for this. I think it's a great thing for our colleges. We've seen a big increase in our first-time students from the previous year, and I think a big part of that is obviously the Columbia College promise, but also these students being dual enrolled early on, it just makes the transition so much easier. So I think that's it.
Any questions? No? Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
and my apologies.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
I do things out of order by accident anyway, so it's okay. Okay, so now we are up to association reports, starting with the Student Senate activity reports. Do we have Michaela and Francisca? Michaela first.
Hi, greetings, honorable trustees. It is a pleasure to report to you tonight the activities of the Associated Students of Modesto Junior College. Today I've brought my fellow executives with me and I'd like to introduce you to them. I've brought the Director of Political Development, which is Anthony, the Vice President, which is Nancy, and our Secretary, which is Vanessa. I just thought it'd be nice to bring them with us here. We have been spending the past month training in preparation for the new school year. ASMJC executives meet daily, and the senators meet twice a week, which is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We are working on several resolutions that highlight our stance of the various campus issues. Tomorrow we will be here at 6 a.m. to do the setup for New Student Day. And finally, we asked for some help with an issue regarding the widescreens for the MJC Stadium. A few years ago, ASMJC provided the funding to have widescreens put up with our logos to support activities in the stadium. For some time now, those widescreens have been down and we cannot seem to get an answer as to why. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Francisca? Do we have somebody here from Columbia? No? Oh, well, yeah, okay. Do you have a report to read, or? Okay. The little red, yeah. There you
I
go.
do not have a report to read, but if you guys have questions,
Okay.
Columbia, I didn't know,
Okay.
presentation.
I think sometimes in the past, the rep has given the report to you, the person in your position, and then they read it, but that didn't happen this time. That's fine. Okay,
Okay then.
all right.
Excuse me? Madam
Yes.
Chair. I
Alan.
have a few remarks from Columbia College Senate President-elect Pam Garrett-Schmidt.
Okay,
Just a few remarks. She asked me to convey to you.
okay.
A couple of things that she asked me to convey. She said that faculty at Columbia College are diligently working this summer on reviewing their programs, including course offerings, certificates, and degrees. Columbia College folks are looking forward to joining the annual end-of-the-year employee event on June 27th here on the West Campus. I'm going to read something else. I hope this is okay with her. But as we corresponded, she put this paragraph in that I find very notable, and it reminds me of something a student speaker said a little earlier. Yes. Oh, I am sorry. Absolutely. Excuse me.
But we're done with the student because we didn't have the student from Columbia. So now we're on the faculty. We're on Alan anyway.
Shall I continue? With your permission. Okay, thank you. All right. So I want to read this, and I hope it's okay with her. Here it is. I missed last month's meeting as I'm one of the guided pathway coaches, and it was the same day our college set to meet with our teams. I will be missing the meeting tomorrow, that would be this meeting, as I will be attending my foster grandson's graduation from welding school on the day of the board meeting. He is graduating through his local community college in Oregon, a huge feat for this young man as he arrived as an unaccompanied minor from Honduras with virtually no English-speaking skills. So that's where she is tonight. And I did write back to her, congratulations to you and your foster grandson. He sounds like what community colleges are all about. Thank you.
Do you have another report for you, or is that it tonight?
I think I should separate them here. This is
Okay.
Okay.
This is part 2.
This is part 2. But by the way, I'm sorry. Wouldn't it be protocol for? Okay. All right. So, President Curtis Martin can add what he wishes. All right. Correct me as he wishes too. Chancellor Young and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I'm sorry I did not attend the last board meeting. It seems that the director of travel at my house made a final determination on my departure date for a trip abroad. Since I last saw you, I served with Professor Lee Cooler as a faculty marshal at graduation, where, mostly thanks to Lee, the faculty ended up at the right place at the right time. I am pleased to take note of that because a lot of you were up front watching. From everything I have heard, the largest graduating class in our college's 98-year history were recognized in a ceremony that has received rave reviews. Currently, I am teaching 2 sections of public speaking in a 5-week session. The courses are greatly accelerated, and I admit I'm spending the first week feeling sorry for myself. However, I am not asking my students for any sympathy, as many of them are taking several accelerated courses while working and attending to their families. Some of my students are here tonight, and they will receive extra credit. I inform my students that any one of them has a right to speak before the board, but apparently there is such a thing as carrying extra credit too far. Since my last report, I have spoken to several of you, and I hope to speak to the rest of you before the July meeting. Again, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're up to the Academic Senate activity reports with Pam Guerra-Schmidt and Curtis Martin. Who's first? Oh, that's right. Never mind. It's you.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is my last meeting as Academic Senate President before this board. Oh, I will not miss it.
Wait a minute.
I like the after board meetings conversations.
Okay.
I arrived 4 years ago to this position, and I look around, and it feels like a game of Survivor. Almost every single person before me is a new person, new presidents at both colleges, almost except for Abe, who has been here, and Ann for quite a while. The entire board is a new board. We have a new chancellor. We have new presidents and vice presidents. And the first time I got before the board, I sort of lambasted the board because I was still smarting from what had happened in 2011. And my perception, and a lot of faculty's perception, that the board was not listening, was not engaging, was not interested in the issues that faculty have had to present. And over the last 4 years, what I've seen is a complete transformation, both institutionally and at the district. It feels that this board is open to engagement, to listening, and to actually carrying out a conversation. And I think that was very important, especially last year, which was a very, very difficult year for everyone involved over negotiations, to have that sort of ear to the ground. So I want to thank everyone who has worked so hard to make this such a great institution. And I leave knowing that this position is in good hands. Chad Redwing is one of the most accomplished faculty that we have. Some of you already may know him. And we will continue the work that we started also sort of 4 years ago with guided pathways, which in fact we're working on this summer. Faculty are working in this summer as we do program mapping. The due date for the rolling out guided pathways is only 1 year away, and we still have a lot of work to do. We're not exactly sure all the barriers that are going to meet us. We sort of mapped some of them, but others we haven't. But I leave happy. I really do. I mean, it's been a wonderful 4 years, frustrating. I never know what to say at these meetings, whether I just report the things that I did or I have a conversation with you in a way that is public. But I certainly, as I said it before, I will not miss having to get up here. I'm shy, believe it or not. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. I will miss you.
Curtis, you're still going to come back to the meetings, aren't you?
Only if you invite me personally, Abe.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you very much. Next up is LTAC. Is Jillian here? You're Jillian? Okay.
Jillian tonight. So just a few items to report. LTAC is working with Human Resources to do the handbook review. So it's at the time we do the review of the LTAC handbook. LTAC put out a survey to members regarding handbook changes that they would like to see and how workload has changed over the prior 2 years, and Jillian will be bringing forth the results of that survey. And then finally, Jillian is working on, it's going to be contacting the presidents to discuss the representation of LTAC at the college councils. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think if I can see, YFA is next. Shelley?
Evening. Good evening. It's good to see all of you tonight. Well, my report tonight, I'm trying to be technologically savvy, so I have my tablet here and my paper backup, just in case. So tonight finishes 6 weeks for me as YFA president. It's been exciting so far, and I'm starting to get my sea legs, I think. So we had a big project to start off the 6 weeks, which was our class capacity project. The colleges, the faculty at both colleges and the deans and the VPIs reviewed over 1,700 courses to prepare for class capacity negotiations, approximately 1,100 of those courses at MJC and 600 at Columbia. We are very excited to report that 90% of the work was done before getting to the negotiations table. And that was between faculty and their departments and at the dean level. It was just heartwarming to be able to get that work done outside of negotiations. So that brought less than 10% to negotiations. We met at the end of May and reviewed just over 100 courses, I think about 100 courses. We completed the work in 6 hours. We were scheduled for 3. But when the 3 hours were up, we were on a roll and we were making progress, and both teams agreed that it was best to just power through and see if we couldn't get it all done, and we did. I think that was a success for both teams. The negotiations atmosphere was collegial, it was collaborative, it was productive, and I think I can speak for my team and hopefully the other team as well, that it was time well invested, time well spent, and we were pretty efficient. So I'd like to thank the district team and the faculty team for their work, and especially to all the faculty across both colleges. It was a big endeavor and took a lot of man hours to research and prepare and reach agreements. And so I'm just really excited and proud of my colleagues for getting that all done. A couple other updates. You may or may not know this, but adjustments to to pay still continue as, following the TA implementation. There's a slight delay, a 1-month delay having to do with the end of year. So we're in working with Jennifer Wellens, which she, again, is amazing. I just want to reiterate that. I mentioned her last week in the payroll team, last month. But there's just a slight delay, and we're hoping that everything is caught up by early fall, which would be nice to get on a regular pay schedule for everyone. But again, the payroll staff has been excellent and responsive to faculty with questions, because it's a complicated process that we're all going through right now. Since my last report, I've been trying to get out there and meet with everyone as much as possible and just have some conversations about where we're headed. I was able to meet with both of the presidents, Dr. B and I, scheduling and being up the hill and on the flat land, decided that it was more efficient to meet by Zoom. So we had a Zoom meeting. It was a lot of fun. I've had several meetings with Chancellor Young. Those have been also fantastic. I've been able to meet with a few of you. I'm looking forward to meeting with the rest of you soon. I just want to thank you, board, for the coffee hours. I've been to the last 2. I know it's summertime, and I'm sure that it's going to pick up in the fall, but thank you for making that available to faculty, staff, and just the whole community. Let's see. Oh, I also was in a Cubs game in Chicago in the last 4 weeks. And I also, I went with my son and my husband. We got snowed out, so we had to go back, which was fun. So I was Cubbies for the day. They were playing the Angels. It was a horrific loss. I just want to say the Angels was not a good game, so I was Chicago Cubs all the way. I do want to recognize the vice presidents of instruction at both colleges and their staff. Again, class capacity was a huge undertaking, and it took a lot of collaboration, and I just want to thank them and let you know how great it was to work with them and recognize them for their hard work in helping us stay on track in the process. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is CSEA. Sherry.
How's your day been going, guys? Good, I hope.
Yes.
So we've kind of had a perfect storm this week that, as you guys are all aware, that we have been dealing with. I want to bring this up here as a not let's put blame, let's look at where the breakdown was, but in how do we move forward with things regarding negotiations and CSEA issues. We have been at this place before, having some, kind of things that weren't going all as well as planned. And I've had some conversations, and I would like to ask you as a board to look at some of all of our internal processes, and let's see how we can alleviate some issues with time constraints, with communications, with transparency as well from both sides of the house. With our negotiations, we have been meeting. We are just about, hopefully, done with negotiations. We will be meeting next week, 2 different times with the negotiating teams. I am hoping to finish that up by next week. That is our goal. A lot of hard work, a lot of stuff has been done in some different things with our classification reviews, looking at job descriptions. And I would just ask that for the future, if the board and the chancellor can please address issues with internal things as far as getting information to everybody so we can get things out in a timely manner to help avoid some of these perfect storms. It just makes it so much easier when people are aware of what's going on, can answer questions, can give information out, and it just helps everybody all the way around. So that is kind of my asking of you guys. CSEA will be talking at the negotiation table with us to see how we can do anything different. But it's something that I am here before the board asking to take a look of that internally as well and see if we can work out some, directions on how to move with a lot of different issues that we're negotiating on. Other than that, I want to thank you guys, and if you have any questions for me.
No questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are up to 5.4, unless I've forgotten something, and I trust Graciela to like wave her arms around and tell me. Okay. We are at Modesto Junior College President James Hoopus.
Good evening. For those who are counting, and I'm hoping you're not counting, I've just passed my 100th day as president. And I thought it would be a great day. Then Curtis brought up Survivor. And so I think I need to spend the next few weeks developing alliances because I don't want to get kicked off the island. But I do appreciate, Curtis, you didn't equate it to Game of Thrones because then I feel like I'd be short-lived, literally. Anyways, it's great to be here. It's been a wonderful 100 days, and hopefully it'll be years to come. It's a great community. I love the students, love the faculty, love the staff. So for my report, I want to start off that Dr. Jenny Abbott and myself met with Dr. Stephanie Couch from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and we discussed MIT's Invention Education Program. And it's the Levinson MIT program, which develops design thinking and technical skills and provides educational resources to support innovation education. And it is a really unique program. And right now it's in through high school and encourages groups of students to get together and actually think entrepreneurially to develop inventions that eventually will go to market. And we had a great conversation with Dr. Couch. She invited Dr. Abbott and Professor Redwing back to MIT to attend their Eureka Fest, which is a national gathering of these student groups to discuss all the challenges they had, discussing what innovative project to pursue, and how they actually brought it to fruition. MIT is now looking to expand their role into community colleges, so they'll be meeting with MIT folks to find out how they can bring that program to community colleges. So I'm hopeful, Jenny, that we'll end up being a leader in that area for community colleges. So I think it's very, very hopeful. Secondly, we started with Curtis, and we're continuing into the summer under Chad to discuss the development of a Center for Teaching and Learning, and that will be ongoing over the course of the summer. The two areas that I'm interested in terms of access and affordability, in terms of online degree development in ZTC, developing those initiatives on campus. Dean Pat Betancourt and Dean Jenny Abbott led to the submission of a proposal to the Chancellor's Office, their online CTE Pathways Fund. The proposals was named Building MJC Capacity for Online Education, Scale, Impact, and Equity. And congratulations to them, it was funded at $188,000. My hope is within 2 years, at least with ZTC, zero textbook costs, we can be looking at saving our students at least $2 million a year through zero textbook costs. And also we're supposed to be developing more FTSs according to what the state is expecting for us in the next 5 years. We're committed to 20% expansion in FTS. The hope with this proposal is the amount of growth in online degrees will be greater than the 20%. We will conclude our second level of interviews for the VPSS by the end of the month and have a person named. The VPAS is still leading to the first level of interviews. And I mentioned it will have periodic articles on Community Strong. The next one will be on our foster student program, and that should be out by the end of the month. I was unanimously approved to serve on United Way's board of directors. So looking forward to developing more connections between United Way and our campus. And last but not least, we have had 12 athletes that have signed letters of intent to continue their academics and athletics at four-year institutions. One in football, but special attention to Zeb Brayton, our baseball coach. 11 of his players are going on to continuing their athletic and academic careers at four-year institutions. And I think special attention is they're going from universities from Hawaii to Florida. So I think it's good. It gives national exposure to what we're doing, both academically and athletically. That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Santanu, Dr. B.
Good evening. Thank you for those comments, Curtis. It sometimes takes us back a few years to see that how much change has happened all around us. And it's nice to know that from the perspective that you are coming from, the institution is moving in the right direction. That's great to know. Shelley, I totally echo your comment that 6-hour-long meeting, it was 6 hours, but it went pretty quick and we accomplished a lot. And the spirit of collegiality, I really appreciate that. The way we could talk about things, those are difficult topics to talk about, but we could be professional, respectful, courteous, and we would like to maintain that same spirit in our future negotiations. Since the last time that I have been here, and I'm here this time, it's like we have seen all kinds of weather. It's 110 degrees or something of that sort outside, and a couple of weeks back, some people were shoveling snow in our areas. When I came to Yosemite, I did not know this is the kind of weather fluctuations that we have. But finally that we are into summer, our summer enrollment has been strong. We are now in the initial phase of fall semester also, and the preliminary numbers suggest that we are ahead of our last year's enrollment numbers. Although it's too early to call whether fall would be really bigger than last year or not. Last 3 semesters, that is last fall, this spring, and this summer, it's indicating that we are gaining some ground in terms of our enrollment. One of the things that we attribute to was what we call the all-in days. Our student services team, they get the students from the local high schools onto the campus. They set up all the desks in one room, so the students go through different academic divisions, talk to financial aid, talk to counseling, and before they leave the campus, they registered themselves for the classes in fall. So it's not left to chance that somebody would come and go and decide later. Before they leave the campus, they're already enrolled. We saw 215 students from Sonora, Somerville, Tioga, Gold Rush Charter, Mountain Oak Charter, Bret Harte, Calaveras, Mariposa, and Oakdale in the month of May. It was a number of schools, and kudos to the student services team. Mike Igo, Courtney, Mary, Brandon, there is a lot of effort and work out there in getting this done. And not only that, this is the number of students that we get from the high school. Many of the students are also enrolling full-time, thanks to the Columbia College Promise. As of end of May, we had 265 applications for Promise. Again, a pretty large number, and hopefully most of those would come in as a full-time status. Full-time status, 265 applications, that translates into a sizable number of FTES. Brandon talked about our CCAP programs, or the dual enrollment programs. It really took a Herculean task to expand the reach from Argonaut, which is in Amador County on one side, to Oakdale, geographic span of almost 100 miles probably on 2 sides. So to cover that area and get all the schools on board, that was a collective effort. And I am pretty sure that all of those investments that we are making in time and these high schools in the years to come, that would yield us the result. More so when you look at the chart that Brandon shared, that our number of high school graduates is progressively declining. We need to capture a higher percentage of that in order to be maintaining at the same level. I've been participating in multiple brainstorming sessions with Motherlode Job Training to create some of the sector-wise pathways. One of the areas that we have been talking about, Brandon and I both were in the meeting, was the health sector pathway. And we are taking a little different approach than the traditional pathway building. Here we invite all the local hospitals, CEOs coming in, and they engage in a discussion about what are their difficulties, what kind of staffing do they need. It is not that we tell them what we have, but it's more from the other side. They tell us what do they need, and then we try to structure our academic services to cater to their needs. This model has been successful in different parts of the country, and we are trying to replicate that similar model. It's interesting to see 4 hospital CEOs in the same room and sharing the concerns that they have in the foothills areas. Finally, we held a classified retreat at the Black Oak Casino on May 30. It seems Brandon is everywhere. He was the keynote speaker out there. That day was very well liked by the folks, and the classified Senate did an exemplary job in getting everybody together, which let our people come together in a relaxed atmosphere, get to know each other, the colleagues, our services, and so on and so forth. And a big thanks to the LTAC managers on that day who maintained the counter services. Because when the classified folks are away, the counter services still continue. And the LTAC folks, they picked up the load and managed those services. It was an overall great team effort. That's about it from me.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, so our chancellor is up next.
Thank you. Measure E was approved by the voters on November 2nd, 2004, for an amount of $326,175,000. The amount of money was dispersed through 4 series. Measure E was intended to implement prioritized projects identified in the district facilities master plan. The FMP itself is a study that took over 18 months to develop by soliciting input from the community, faculty, students, and staff. Through Measure E, construction of new facilities and renovations of existing facilities became possible in the district. The projects made possible by Measure E funding have served our students and community since 2004 and will continue to do so well into the future. Since the passage of Measure E, YCCD has been a good financial steward of bond funds and utilized careful planning, including the use of latest and environmentally sustainable building designs. At both colleges, the new facilities and newly renovated projects provided great facilities that align with the educational needs of our students and provided a conducive learning environment. Mindful that the $326 million is a lot of money, and for transparency, in 2005, the Board of Trustees appointed 14 individuals to a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. The purpose of the committee is to review bond projects and bond funding and to inform the general public of expenditure of the YCCD bond revenues. And this is to ensure that the construction projects are using the proceeds properly used for its intended purposes. The revenues from Measure E are now expended, and we find ourselves in need of maintenance of our infrastructure. And also there is need for continued student learning. The need is there, and I just want to take this opportunity, as I have, to thank the community for supporting YCCD. And as the funding from Measure E is now mostly gone, we must now discuss what options are there for us as a district to secure additional funding to maintain the facilities that have been constructed and the facilities that have been renovated. My comments tonight are intended to bring us to this thought of how could we look to the future of our district
And where could we find additional funding for maintenance of the infrastructure that we have? Because we obviously don't have the funds to cover that. And I would like to have this conversation be open so that the board and the public could provide input on whether a new bond might be an option for us to consider in the very near future. We have seen new bonds that passed in school districts, K-12, K-8, in our region, because those districts basically are in the same situation that we are in. Basically, the lack of funding from the state for facilities and the lack of funding from the state for the maintenance of the existing infrastructure. We will continue the conversation in the coming meetings next month. I hope that we can continue the conversation. But tonight we want to have an opportunity for input, a conversation by the board, by the audience. And I'd like to open the meeting for some input.
Come on, it's your last meeting, Curtis.
Drop a bomb like that and expect us to, I suspect there'll be a lot of discussion. And the first question would be, do you have a vision, or is it just money to infrastructure? And if anything was a problem in the previous one, as we had a transition from Pam Fisher, who had a very clear vision of what she wanted for the institution, and the subsequent chancellors, those visions change, not always for the best. So if you're going to sell this to the community, you have to have a comprehensive vision for passing that money. That's the best I can do.
Thank you.
Chancellor.
Comments are well taken.
And I would agree with that wholeheartedly, what you said, Curtis. As you know, just at MJC alone, in a present value basis, our short-term and long-term maintenance needs are approximately 120 million. For Columbia College, it's a little over 30 million, give or take, on a present value basis. So as more years that you go out and you keep pushing that out, inflation starts to take hold and it gets more and more expensive. A good example of that is the swimming pool that is adored and widely used by not only our internal community, but the public as a whole. Old facility. It's requiring now a lot of state mandated infrastructure additions that was presented at the last board meeting. So that's one example of what we're facing. And I don't know if a bond is the answer, but at some point we need to address these long-term, very expensive costs. And if we don't, it's going to start impacting our ability to deliver a quality education to our folks in our district. Because there's a lot of things that need to be addressed now and into the future.
We would certainly look to the colleges to look at the prioritization of needs and how we could select a combination that could be addressed. There won't be a bond of such a size that would be able to take care of every single need. So the two colleges and the district, as a whole, would need to identify some of those needs and then a priority list be established. And so we're hoping that this conversation could generate interest, and then uh,
Can't be about, this is what we need. Instead, it has to be, in order to serve you, here's what we'd like to ask for. And I think that there are some things happening right now that create a beautiful opportunity. So speaking just from MJC, there is a large initiative moving in our community called Cradle to Career. And this involves the Stanislaus Community Foundation and SCO and hospitals and nonprofits. And it's moving in such a way to look at how can we help students before they get into school learn how to read, learn how to do math, get through college, and get into careers. And there are dozens and growing into hundreds of people who are participating in organizing teams and looking at metrics and how do we share data between all these organizations. And I think if we figure out how we embed into what that movement is already doing, and here's how MJC, because we stand between K-12 and four-year colleges, we're in the middle of everybody, this is what we can do to better serve those things. When you add that to the vision goals that we just set, both colleges, that we want to increase the number of completions and the number of transfers, and when we can start sharing that we're working towards those increases and show some data that prove that we are making increases, then I think the community is going to say, yes, we want to help you. MJC's coming up on a centennial. Yes, we want to help. Yes, we want to make this community's college actually thrive. And I think it's just pulling those pieces together and learning how to message it. That's my 2 cents.
thank you.
Chancellor, piggybacking on a couple of things that are said. First off, we do have, we need to find a way to fund our TCOs. And so we can't fund the entire TCO in 1 year. We would be looking to have a revenue source that we could fund a certain amount each year to, over time, be able to keep up our plants. Secondly, there were a couple of important projects that were not done in the last bond that are in the facilities master plans. We ran out of money. That includes at MJC, moving the ag buildings that are on the other campus over to this campus. And then at Columbia College, there was to be a classroom and a facility of sorts for the firefighting academy. And so that wasn't built, and that continues to be a priority. It also fits in with the current state priorities surrounding CTE. Additionally, particularly at MJC, but also at Columbia, a lot of our plant is aging. And so we have these very old buildings, but there is an expectation that we will be moving towards much more energy efficient space. And we're not going to get there without the funding to make that happen. So you're absolutely right. When you go for a bond, you have to have a clear statement of what you're trying to achieve. When you talk to voters, it's not about we need money, it's about how this will help the students achieve their educational goals. We would need to conduct a survey to find out what our community thinks that is important to our community that we are doing here. And so it's a very deliberative process that the entire campus community has to have input on. And so that would happen over, as we move forward, if we go, if we do in fact go for a bond.
Thank you.
I can add, one of the areas that we all feel is necessary in Central Valley, in our area, up in Columbia, as well as in Modesto, is a lack of well-prepared workforce and well-paying jobs. If you look at 100 miles out to the west, go to the Bay Area, there are jobs where there are not enough people to take those jobs, or the jobs do not pay enough to allow the people to live there. To get those jobs to our area, what can we do in order to serve the community? Because here, people want to be residents of this area. They do not want people to go out 100 miles and leave and never come back. And for that, if we can develop some amount of partnerships or academic centers for apprenticeship excellence, whichever name you give it. And right now, Long Beach has established one with the City of Long Beach and Port of Long Beach and Long Beach City College. They're saying it's a partnership between the industries and the college where they would prepare workforce which would cater to them. That can have some appeal to the people and bring jobs. Talking about fire and forestry program, fire, forestry, those are very relevant words right now. Last year, if you look at Camp Fire and Woolsey Fire, the property loss in California was $19 billion. That's insurance estimates. We are talking about a program where we already have students who want to get into the fire and forestry program. We just don't have that facility. So bring together fire, forestry, GIS. Now you're talking about a facility which can cater to the students, helps the community in terms of fighting fire, as well as getting some well-paying jobs in that region. So I do think we have opportunities. We have to talk more how to flesh out those ideas and package it well. But we definitely can do that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
Okay, thank you for the input. Great ideas. And I have just one other announcement, and that is the Summer Employee Event and Spirit Awards presentation will take place on June 27 in the A's Pavilion. So keep that on your calendar, and so that we can see you at the A's Pavilion on June 27. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. A lot to chew on. We're up to 5.7, and the YCCD Security Master Plan is included as a point of information in our packets. And if there are questions, John Black wasn't able to be here tonight, but Graciela will relay them if anybody has questions on the security report. No? Okay. So in the same vein, the grant activity update is an FYI. And we are now up to the consent agenda.
So there's one change on item 6.10.
Yes.
Removing Mr. Brian Carnett. He is not being put forward for approval. He accepted a position at a different organization.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any items that need to be addressed individually?
Or
I'm sorry,
pulled?
do we have any items that we have to address individually? If not, then
I'd like to pull the, I believe it is 6.8, the CSEA.
do you want to discuss that or do you want to pull it?
Discuss it.
Okay. The member-initiated classification review?
Yeah, the one,
Okay.
yes. I would just like to abstain from that vote.
You want to discuss it individually or you want to discuss it in here and now?
We can do whatever you
However
guys
you want to
want.
do it. We can pull it or we can address it now.
Discuss now.
Okay. All right. Let's discuss.
Okay, the reason why I want to pull it for discussion is under the fact that it was started over a year ago and did not have earlier notification before voting on it. And I understand the importance of it passing, but I don't feel that I was able to understand it completely. So I'm just in my opinion, I feel like I need to abstain.
Okay. Okay. Any other comment or questions? Nope. Okay. And you definitely meant 6-8, not 6-9?
If you're not comfortable with the vote in general, we can pull it and then vote on the item separately.
I'm sorry, it is 6.9.
Okay.
That's what she wants to do. I think so.
Okay. So you want to vote on it separately?
Yes.
Okay.
You can abstain from it.
Okay, let's do that, and that way you can abstain from that. That makes perfect sense. All right, so let's.
So then I'm going to move that, with the exception of just always trying to notify of the retirements, Dana Holiday, 24 years of service in accounts payable. Linda Hoyle, marketing and public relations, she has 20 years. So with that, I will move that we exclude 6.9 and approve the items 6.2 through 6.12, less 6.9.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay. And no abstentions on this one, so motion carries. So now let's take up 6.9 separately. Do I have a motion on 6.9?
I'll make a motion to approve 6.9.
Okay, Tony made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion for the vote.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Nancy? And any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Now we have to go through all the pages. Okay, to action items. So now we're at 7.1. As I said, we didn't meet. There were no changes. Did you have anything to add, Kimberly? Or we're good? Okay. So the recommended action is that the Board of Trustees conducts a second reading and approves the following policies. I won't read them all to you. You can see them in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay. Darren and Abe, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right. So we are now up to 7.2, if I'm not skipping anything. I don't think I am I? Okay. So you can see in the packet information on board stipends. The recommended action is that the board make a motion that the trustees approve to change their current intent from not being paid a stipend to a new intent of paying board members a monthly stipend. It's regulated by the state, but if you look below, it says the maximum, the number of districts in the state who get the maximum allowed by law is 48. The number that get less than the maximum is 18. Only 6 districts get no payment. So the intent here is just that we move ahead. The policy will have to go through the process. So I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Tony made the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Nancy.
I would comment.
Sure.
I would prefer to table this item and bring it back after the full board reviews it. I think it's an important issue that needs to be studied in detail. There's a lot of questions that I'm concerned with as far as the policies and procedures that are needed to implement.
Well, my understanding, Abe, is that we have to indicate our intent, and then the part that you're talking about, all the policies have to come after we indicate our intent with this vote. And then all of the things that you're talking about would still be part of that discussion. And then we would still have to approve that later. So hopefully everything you're concerned about would be addressed.
Okay, because in its present form, I wouldn't vote for it. So yeah, we'll go ahead. I'll agree.
Okay.
Yeah, because I too want to, I agree with Abe. I understand the mechanics of it, but I want to see some specific language here.
Right.
With respect to attendance at meetings.
Right.
Because I think it should be in line with employees. If employees don't show up for work, they don't get paid. If we don't show up and do our job, we don't get paid either. So I want to see some specific language in there. Otherwise, I'm not going to support this thing at all. So I understand the mechanics tonight, but I just want to make that point loud and clear.
Yeah, it was confusing that we realized that we had to have the vote to change our intention first and then do all the things that you're talking about. And I agree also, as far as that it has to have teeth in it and it has to have, has to be much more specific. So,
So the motion would be that we would study this issue further and then bring it back at a later.
the motion, it's here, the motion is that we just indicate our intention to move forward, and then we have to come up with the policy after that. That's what the state said.
Okay, that
To go to
would,
the constituency groups and go through the normal process as any policy, right?
Right.
well, the thing is, our intent, Darren and I guess, right at this point, is that our intent is to make it sure that we study it thoroughly.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so did you make a motion? Tony made the
motion's on the
motion.
table.
It was seconded by Nancy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Yes.
Make a comment on this. I know a related policy did pass through the process, and I just wanted to know that those statistics provided by you were asked for by some faculty who were interested in this, and I will report that back to them. I will also report that the board is being very deliberate and careful with this, and I will also make note of the fact that all three faculty organizations overwhelmingly supported your movement toward the stipends.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Alan, that the question is not whether we as a board support it or not. We just want to make sure that it's in detail as to some of the things that Darren questioned about missing meetings, whether you're excused or not excused, how it affects being paid. And I think that's the important issue. I don't think anybody's against the stipend. It's just that we want to make sure that we cover it thoroughly as far as each board member in attendance.
Well, I'm going to be pleased to report those exact sentiments to the faculty organizations, and that's what I meant by careful and deliberate.
Thank you.
Alan goes to our meetings and he's heard us talk about it. Okay, so I think now we are up to the general, oops, I skipped a page. Are we up to the budget, the tentative budget?
I thought I knew, but
I was on a roll of page turning.
I did it. Okay, this evening we have before you the 2019-20 tentative budget for your review and approval. So I think in your packet you also have a copy of the budget, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So tonight we're going to cover.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry, this thing is not set up for me and all my paper. It's just not set up right. Okay, so Okay, can you hear me better there? Okay.
Yes.
So tonight, will that work? Let's see, I'm trying to find the arrow. Oh, well, wait a minute, does that work? Great. We're going to cover the 2018-19 budget, which we wouldn't normally have to do, but these are different times. We're going to cover the 2019-20 state and California community colleges budget, and then the YCCD 2019-20 tentative budget, and finally the next steps. So I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible, but there is a lot of information here. So the 2018-19 budget, we do not normally approach this time of year not knowing how much money we have for current year, but that is the situation that we're in. Usually it's based on our performance, and if we're not going to make our FTS or whatever, we usually know that, and so we can plan for that. In this case, however, we had the new student-centered funding formula. In January, we were notified that there would be mid-year changes to the formula, including that special admits and incarcerated students would be removed from the 3-year average, and that the transfer counts and the student success allocation would be reduced. That didn't have a lot of impact for us, but I know one district in particular who had a lot of prison population enrolled, and it was a huge hit. So we did well in January. In March, exactly on March 6th, actually, we got a memo from the Chancellor's office informing us that tax revenues were low, and that furthermore, the SCFF, which is shorthand for Student-Centered Funding Formula, was underfunded, that a deficit factor would be applied. Yosemite's was 5.05 or $5.4 million, which would have brought our total computational revenue down to 101.6 million. We were not happy, nor was most of the state, and it caused quite a fuss. Shortly thereafter, the Chancellor's office informed us that they had a new plan. They called it a guarantee, but they didn't sound very confident, but they said that districts would either get the 17-18 revenue plus COLA, and that was for districts who aren't really in the student-centered funding formula yet, and for lack of a better way to explain it, those on the losing side of the new formula, or we would get what they're now calling a constrained TCR, so we're making up new definitions of 17-18 revenue plus a maximum of 8.13% COLA. Well, not COLA, but 8.13%. For Yosemite, that would put us at 103.4 million, approximately 1 million less than what we had projected our 18-19 budget on. In May revise, shortly thereafter, and at ACPO, the Chancellor's office was much more confident that we would get the constrained TCR, total computational revenue, and did tell us that the final numbers would be out by June 30th. So by the end of the year, we'll know how much money we get. They do seem confident that we will get the 103.4. They seem somewhat confident that we will not be getting more at this time. So next, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch to this page, so sorry. So next, we'll talk about the 2019-20 state and California community colleges budget. I have both here Jan 10 information and then May revise information, because honestly, there wasn't that much in both pertaining to community colleges. So the Prop 98 guarantee for 1920, in January it was 80.7 billion. It went up to 81.1 billion in May revise, and you can see compared to the other years that it's significantly higher, and it is at its highest point ever. The 2019-20 COLA was 3.46 in the January 10 budget. That did reduce to 3.26%. And if you remember, that is calculated off a federal indice that doesn't have a lot to do with what's actually happening in California, which I do think was the attractiveness of it. So at least it's consistent, right? And so the COLA did go down a little bit. The community colleges will receive 10.93% of the total Prop 98 funding, and I believe that's down from 10.97 last year, but that may have been because of the implementation of whatever was going on last year, because usually 10.93 is pretty normal. Included in the governor's budget, a total increase to the California Community Colleges Proposition 98 funding of $246 million. Of that, $62.4 million was for the student-centered funding formula and the base adjustment, and that is mostly COLA, that 3.26. There was also $62 million for the, 83 million for the California Promise Program. If you recall, last year there was money in the budget for the first year free of college for eligible students. It's now been expanded in 1920 to the second year free for eligible students. So this increasing focus on students and getting them through the process. Student success completion grants were $150 million, $50 million for full-time faculty hiring, $25 million for 0.55% enrollment growth, and $20 million for the California Online College. Now, the budget was passed by the legislature recently, but we haven't received a trued-up version. I know some of the things that passed or didn't, so these are still subject to change depending on the final budget. So those were the ongoing funds. Looking at one-time, it's important to note that there's very little one-time money in this budget compared to the last few years. Governor Brown was particularly fond of one-time money so that he wasn't adding to ongoing money. He was projecting a recession from his first year through his last, and so he didn't want to build the base up too much. So this year, there was $39.6 million added on for deferred maintenance and instructional equipment in the May revise. It was not in Jan 10, and it's not entirely clear that that's going to survive because there were numerous suggestions about better uses for those funds. So we'll have to see what that outcome is. Beyond the budget, meaning that it impacts more than just community colleges, there's $121.6 million for Cal Grant expansion to provide for student parents and an increase in the number of grants. There's $850 million to offset contribution rates for STRS. I do believe this was changed actually to offset rates for STRS and PERS. We'll know more about those rates soon. And then there was also $2 million something. The state is going to buy down their share of CalPERS, but I didn't include it here because it's not particularly helpful for the community colleges. And then there's $2 million for a new statewide I don't know how you say this word actually, longitudinal student data system. So basically they want to be able to track students all the way from K-12 through community college and at the 3 four-year segments. So in addition to the adjustments made to the student-centered funding formula in 1819, there will be further changes in 1920. The first one is that the SCFF will stay at the 70% FTES, the 20% enrollment of low-income students, and the 10% student success outcomes. If you remember, for the second year, we were supposed to transition to 65% FTES, 20% the supplemental, and 15% student success. So we're holding. The student success growth will be capped at 10%. And that is 10% of dollar values. So it doesn't do any good to try to figure out which student success metric pays you the most, except to the extent that you're trying to get to 10%. So it's a dollar value cap. The definition of the number of students who transfer to four-year institutions will be modified. There's a lot of discussions about this that got a little complicated, so
they'll be working that out. And then funding rates will reflect 2018-19 rates plus COLA. Regarding the formula, districts will receive the highest of the following calculations. The amount per the SCFF for 1920, that is where Yosemite CCD will fall. The amount per the SCFF for 1819, so that's districts who haven't fallen out of the funding formula but didn't hit their amount for 1819, so it's a stability item. And then the amount received in 1718 adjusted by the 1819 and 1920 COLAs. And that again is those districts who are not quite in the COLA yet. And then the hold harmless provision was proposed to extend through 2021. On this, I would comment that the Chancellor's Office has requested a fiscal crisis and management assistant team to review the funding formula data with recommend changes in policy protocols or audit procedures that could improve the data quality to be completed by early June. So that is going on, and that may precipitate changes, mid-year changes in 1920 to the funding formula. So with that information, we get to Yosemite Community College District's budget. So this is the tentative budget. We pass a tentative budget to give us authority to spend starting on July 1st. This is based solely on the data in the January 10 governor's budget, because by the time May revise comes out, our budget is actually complete, and I think it's even submitted for a board item. So we'll adopt the final budget in September. By that time, we'll have the final state budget numbers, and we'll also have our year closeout numbers, so much better assumptions as we move through. The budget planning strategies, these should not change from year to year. We try to base on realistic budget projections at the time of the preparation. So I'm actually pretty happy when I have some people complaining that, oh, your projections are way too high, just too high. And then I have other people telling me they are so low. That means we've kind of got a sweet spot. We use a comprehensive multi-year approach to budget development and fiscal planning. We engage in open dialogues with key stakeholders, and I am happy to report that the District Fiscal Advisory Council is up and running. They did look at budget assumptions. They have seen the budget before it came here. With the final budget, we'll be able to take that through the DFAC and also through District Council before it goes before the the Board Finance Committee and then to the board for approval. So we also are very careful to distinguish between ongoing and one-time revenues and realign expenditures accordingly. The one thing that we cannot do is we cannot be paying ongoing expenditures with one-time money. And so that has to be a basic budgeting principle. And then we implement efficiencies to improve service and lower cost. The major revenue assumptions for the 1920 budget, and this is on page 5 of your budget document. We are projecting revenue at $108.2 million, or $108,154,000. A target of full-time equivalent students of 16,315, and that is tracking back to what we believe the outcome will be for this year. It assumes the supplemental and student access metrics are flat compared to the data submitted for 18-19, and that is because we had a huge jump between 17-18 and 18-19, and we weren't sure about what was possible for the next year, and we did discuss that with college leadership. Non-resident tuition, $775,000 in revenue. Lottery is at $2.4 million. The CalSTRS on behalf payment at $3,375,000. and the state mandated block grant at $470,000, and the part-time faculty allocation at $320,000. The expenditure assumptions, the major expenditure assumptions, also on page 5, are $976,000 to augment for PERS and STIRS, $140,000 fringe benefit rate changes, $330,000 to augment for 3 new faculty positions at MJC, approximately $1 million for longevity and step and column increases, and the transferring of parking operational budget from the colleges to central services. And finally, all non-resident tuition revenue has been earmarked for the colleges. This next slide is a summary of the information on page 7 of your budget. And I'm going to focus mostly on, actually, I'm going to focus on the 2019-20 tentative budget. We're projecting revenues, total revenues and expenditures at 100 and, I'm going to have to, it's not good when you have astigmatism and the paper's not lying right. 116,334,520. We will be rounding in future presentations. A beginning fund balance of 18,676,000 and an ending fund balance of the same because we're not projecting any deficits or surplus. That would be a projected fund balance of 16.05%. And looking at that $18.7 million, that would support approximately $3 million, or excuse me, 3 months of payroll expenditures. The full-time faculty budgeted would be 306, and so that reflects the 3 increase from 18-19 at MJC. We would go down to the, we would go in order on page 7, but I'd like to keep talking about fund balance since we're already talking about it. So we have the beginning fund balance of 18,676,000. And so the breakdown is 500,000 for encumbrances, prepaid, and inventory. That's stuff we've already committed to. We have the board's required 10% reserve of 10,550,000, a reserve for PERS and STIRS increases of 3 million, and a reserve for one-time initiative projects of 2,303,000. I do want to comment on this. If you recall, we had approximately 5.4 million at the beginning of 18-19 that we thought we were going to be able to allocate out. Once all the agreements were done, that's down to 2.3, and then the reduction, the $1 million approximately reduction in our revenue from the state, so now it's down to 1.3, and then we're still working out the retros, and so there will be potential for that, and I believe that number will be down below $1 million when it's all said and done, but that that amount will go out to the colleges, whatever is left. And then an undesignated fund balance of $2,323,000 approximately. Moving to the revenues, so now we're going in order. At the top of page 7, the revenues. I told you earlier that we were projecting approximately 108.2 million in revenues. And so when you look at this page, you can't see them, but if you look at the state revenue apportionment plus the local revenue, that in total is the 108. And the local revenue includes property taxes, student fees, interest, and other income. And then we have other state revenue of 4.6 million, and that is mostly our lottery money with some other revenue sources. So now we're going to look at the various expenditures, but we're going to show them in this form because I think it's easier to get an idea of the allocations. but the page numbers for each one are at the top, so this still corresponds to page 7, and you can see that our total expenditures are 105.5 million. You can see how it's allocated out between the various groups, which this is not good because I can't read it on either. So I'm officially blind. I think it's 39% academic salaries, 24% classified salaries, 28%. For benefits is 28, I think. Yes, 28%. And then the remainder, is very small. So most of what we spend goes out in salaries and benefits. And the state average for salaries and benefits as a percentage of total expenditures last year was 87.5. Yosemite was at 90%. This year, this budget is tracking to about 88%. The state as a whole has been creeping up. A few years ago, the average was 85%. And I do think new SCFF or not, the state is going to have to start grappling with these numbers are getting higher and higher. So then we go to the colleges. First one is MJC, and we can see that 56% at MJC. Oh, I do need to make a caveat here. We have approximately 5 million in this budget that is not allocated, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So remember that allocation will change these, so that's important. But for what we have allocated right now, MJC is at 54% for academic salaries, 14% for classified salaries, 28% for benefits, and then a small sliver of other things. So again, very salaries and benefits. Columbia College looks very similar. I know what the problem is. Okay. Columbia is similar. They're 50% in academic salaries, 18% in classified salaries, 26 or 28, 26% in benefits, and then again, that small sliver. So total of $14 million. Central services, we don't have as much in academic salaries. We do have some because we have the release time and one FTEF. And then we have largely classified salaries and benefits. And then our operating expenditures is much larger because we have facilities, which has a lot of direct expenditure cost. And we also have HR and IT. So I didn't move to that, did I? Did we get there? So that's central services. So finally, we have a new category. I had been talking with other districts, and basically, most districts categorize district-wide expenses separately, and so we've started to do that in this budget. And so here we have things that are for the district-wide. They're not particularly tied to any one of central services or the colleges. And so you can see that we have about 5 million, that's the unallocated. Now that number, I don't want you to get too attached to it because the most I can say is it's probably going to get smaller. But once it gets set, the idea is to allocate it out. And then we're carrying, this category has about $10.8 million, including the STRS on behalf payment, capital outlay transfer. In the interim, we don't have a bond, so we have to get some money to Fund 41 so that we can do scheduled maintenance for the foreseeable future and fund some portion of the TCO. There's also $500,000 for the IT TCO and then the health fund transfer. During the last, the Anderson School, UCLA Anderson School, is now projecting a recession within the next 5 quarters. Their senior economist is saying if we end up putting tariffs on Mexico, that it's a good way to start a recession, kind of to make that come earlier. During the last downturn, we had workload reductions, which is another nice way of saying budget reductions, and we had 5 straight years with no COLA. And that's the way that that's the way we get money, increased money. Meanwhile, though, we have PERS and STIRS increases to deal with. So some of you will remember the strategy, and I'm not sure if the new board members are aware. What the idea was is to reserve some of this ongoing money for future PERS and STIRS increases so that we have the money available to add to our base. But we didn't want to just bank it. We wanted to give it to the districts as one-time money. So unfortunately, a series of events sort of made it so that plan didn't work as well last year. But we are looking at that again for this year. And we'll be truing it up a little bit between now and final budget. But that is the plan for dealing with the potential recession. And so finally, I did want to comment that you may have noticed that the budget looks different this year. And I'd like to thank Dr. Schrader and her staff. They looked at a lot of other budgets, and what we wanted to do was give the board and the public more information about other funds other than the GF, and to provide more transparency. And so they scoured other budgets and came up with what they thought was easier to read. I found the other budget, I like numbers a lot, but the notes sort of, everything got lost for me, so I really like a clean, stripped down kind of presentation, so I hope you like it. So I'm not going to go over the other funds, and I bet you're all happy about that in this presentation. But if you want to see the restricted general funds, they're on pages 12 through 15. The capital outlay funds, including Fund 41 and Fund 43, the bond funds, pages 16 through 18. The special revenue funds, which include the bookstore at both colleges, cafeterias at both colleges, and then the farm at MJC, so that's on pages 19 through 25. And then you have the trust funds for student financial aid and the associated student funds on pages 26 through 35. So we're just hoping that that provides more information, gives you a more complete picture of the funds that we're dealing with. So with that, we have a little bit more, but this will be quick, I promise. We pretty much have the same opportunities and challenges we had last year. The student metrics, the student-centered funding formula in general provides opportunity because we have more ways to grow and increase our funding other than just FTES. Guided pathways is an opportunity. And the CCAP agreements that were discussed this evening. Our challenges are, and will continue to be, this new student-centered funding formula. Personnel expenditures obviously continue to increase, and then maintaining our indicators at appropriate levels. Next steps are, I discussed earlier that we will, the final state budget gets adopted. We will be taking our tentative budget through its various steps, and then we'll be coming to you in September with the final budget for your review and approval. So with that, do we have any questions? That is it. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. I appreciate the detailed explanation. And
Yes.
my only comment would be that I would have liked to had the budget, the entire budget on the page that we normally have, and then I could have referenced it back to that. So that's.
So can we talk about that? So here's the thing. If we're going to just look at the budget, which is fine, putting that level of detail on a slide makes it almost unreadable. But I would be happy to just have my budget here and go through that make the budget the presentation.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant in addition to this, I would be able to refer back. There's the one, yeah. That's what
We have so many papers over here. Sometimes it's
Oh,
hard to
I'm
find
sorry.
what we're looking for.
I thought you
That's
did
what we
have
got
it.
for the finance committee meeting.
Yeah,
that
I
one.
thought you did have it. I'm so sorry. That's why I was referencing page numbers. Okay, we'll make sure next year, next time we'll be on board in September. Thank you.
That's just a minor thing, but that's easier to reference it back.
That's
Thank you very much.
fair.
Thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion that the Board of Trustees adopts the general fund tentative budget for YCCD and direct staff to file it with Stanislaus County Superintendent of Schools by July 1st. Do I?
Second.
Okay, who's? Okay, Darren and Abe, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, now we have 7.4, the establishment of the 2019-2020 appropriations limit with our controller, Sarah Schrader.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So tonight before you is our appropriations, or more commonly known as our GAN limit calculation. And this is one of those very fun, archaic calculations that we must perform. And actually, I went back a little bit ago and double checked when to see this was actually instituted. It was back in 1979 that we have to follow an appropriations calculation that essentially tries to make sure that our spending levels do not go under the 1978, 1979 levels, and that are adjusted for inflation. So this goes back to just one of those calculations that we have to do and bring forward to you every year.
Okay.
So just for those new board members, since you haven't had the fun experience of listening to this, wanted to let you know that this GAN limit is in our state constitution, and it establishes and sets expenditure limitations for local agencies and school districts and community college districts, as well as county offices of ed. So each year, our appropriations limit is adjusted for our inflation, price index, as well as our, what they call our population, which is our FTES calculation. So you will see that before you this evening is the 1920 appropriations limit, because that's the fiscal year we're running into. And you can see that last year, our appropriations limit for 18-19 was $153 million. Our budget was only set at 113 million, so we're good on not overexpending on our appropriations limit. And for the 1920 appropriations limit, we are actually set at 154 million. Our budget you just saw is only set at 116. So we are good to go and not exceeding our limits anytime soon. So with that, if you have any questions about this calculation, I'll be happy to answer them for you at this time.
Any questions? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Tony. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
So I'll save time because I'm the next item too.
I know you are.
So for what they call our EPA funds, which is our Education Protection Act fund, each year we do have to bring forward to you our intent on how we spend our Education Protection Act funds. These are the funds that were through originally Proposition 30. It increased sales tax as well as the individual income tax for a certain period of time. And then back in November of 2012, it actually extended to Proposition 55. It extended the individual income tax piece. So before you this evening, it's not new revenue. It is another piece of the pie of state apportionment revenue. So you will see that for the 18-19 fiscal year, we had $14,958,000. And we are expending that on all instructional salaries and benefits. As you saw in the budget again, our instructional costs are significantly more than our EPA dollars that we receive. So we earmark those dollars strategically to cover a portion of those expenditures. So again, not new revenue, and we do anticipate that we will receive some of these dollars into the next year as well, and we will be here before you again, giving the same report next year.
Any, Got it. All in favor, say aye. Oh, a second. Nancy's the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, now we're back to Susan with 7.6, five-year construction plan.
So we have here before you the district's five-year construction plan for your review and approval. And quickly, the five-year construction plan, it uses the state standards to compare, how shall I put this? Essentially, rear ends to seats, and it tells you how much space you need or don't need. So if you're at 100%, it means you have exactly the amount of space you need. If you're below 100, you need space, and if you're above 100, you have plenty. In general, we have space that is overbuilt, but we do have at MJC a need for library and AV/TV space. So normally, and honestly, we have a need for upgraded, improved, remodeled space. Now, normally, I would talk a bit more about this five-year plan, except that two things. One is we do have an IPP in, an initial project proposal for the music building remodel. The Chancellor's office is, as we speak, revamping the prioritization criteria. And so I believe that will go to the Board of Governors in July. So our IPP will be judged on a different set of standards than under which it was submitted. And then secondly, the entire backbone of the five-year plan is the space standards. And the Chancellor's office is asking to change the space standards for the first time since approximately 1973, which means that all of this would change. And one of the changes that they're suggesting would help because they would be increasing lecture space to 20 square feet per wish. So this is a good change, but honestly, it makes this document
Useless?
I didn't want to say that, but kind of that's where we are with it. So I will continue. I'm on the facilities task force. I will continue to go to those meetings and understand where the state is, because if we do go for a bond to the extent possible, we want to try to leverage that to see if we can be eligible for state funding. So with that, I would ask for your approval of the district's five-year plan.
I have just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
When do you think they'll come up with their new standards?
So that is actually not as easy a question as it sounds, because the space standards were taken out of Title V. They rest with the Board of Governors. The problem with that, I think that's what they're called, right, Henry? Board of Governors. The problem with that is they have to review it be reviewed by the Department of Finance. And many years ago, we tried to get a very little change through on library that would have saved the state money in the long, and they couldn't see past that initial increase. So it could take a long time.
Okay.
But it could be 6 months, who knows?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, though. It's very nice. I really.
That's,
Get a binder.
you can
Need a
thank
motion
Judy
on this,
Lanchester and her staff
Graciela?
for that.
We need a motion on this, and that's the recommendation that the Board of Trustees receive the plan and approve the submission to the California Community College Chancellor's Office as per policy 3600, capital construction.
Okay. Do I have a second? I mean, a first and a second? Second, sorry. It's late. Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
And thank you for the update on the music building.
Mhm.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was happy to see that in there. Okay, so now we're up to the Columbia College Child Care Center Agency Annual Report.
I'll move we accept staff's recommendation on Columbia College.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We are now up to board comments. So I'd like to welcome Savannah, our new student trustee. And
Thank you.
it will be a learning experience, I know.
Oh, yes, I feel like I've learned a lot already.
And it never stops. Okay, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you for my first experience. I really enjoyed it, all the debate, and
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
trust me, I will.
Okay. Nancy, did you want to abstain or do you want to say anything?
I'd just like to say, welcome, Savannah. I hope you enjoy the time as well as, this is my first year and I've really enjoyed it. This last month I attended the nurses fundraiser for the nursing program here. It was a great event. And recently I have met many of our current and former nurses at Doctors Hospital, and they have been fantastic. We have a great program, and I hope it grows and continues.
Thank you very much. Okay. Tony?
The last, this has been a slowest month of the year. I only had one meeting. It was the board finance committee meeting, and that was it.
Okay. Darren?
Well, give me a little time because I was delinquent when I wasn't here last month. Let's bring you up to date. So this will go back a while, but bear with me. So April back in, I went to the staff recognition dinner, spring board retreat. I went to the Ag Scholarship breakfast. Saw a lot of people there that I hadn't seen for a long time, and what a great program. So thank you to all the folks that put that together. I went to the MJC Tenure Recognition Awards ceremony. Went to the MJC Nursing Degree Pinning ceremony, the MJC Commencement ceremony, Board Finance Committee meeting back in May, the annual Spring School Boards Association dinner, the board vice chair, past chair debrief meeting, the Board Finance Committee meeting on June the 3rd, and then the June 10th preview meeting. So that's pretty much, I was, last month I had a conflict with my retirement board duty, so that's why I wasn't here. I want to welcome Savannah. You're going to enjoy this. It's a great opportunity to get into the mechanics of how things work, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and if you have any concerns from the students, that's why you're here. So we want to hear their voices. And finally, the most important thing is, Curtis, I want to thank you for your leadership, your friendship, and your guidance in delivering the message of the Academic Senate to all of us that sit up here. It sometimes takes a person with your zeal, your energy, to get that message across and get it heard. And I think last year, with everything that was going on, as you relayed to us when you spoke earlier, we needed someone like you to hear it in a way that was professional and congeniality in that mix as well. So I want to thank you. Your peers should thank you as well. I know they do, and you will be missed, but I know you will be around. So thank you.
Abe, you're up.
Oh, I knew I had some responsibility here. No, I just want to make a comment, which is I'm very proud of. I had a son of mine that passed away 5 years ago, and his daughter at that time was completing Pittman High School at her senior year, and won the Young Women's Distinguished Award on that year that my son passed away. Well, this June, Lacey is the granddaughter. She graduated from Fresno State College, and our family is really proud of that. Also, I have two grandsons. One graduated from UC Merced this year, and the other graduated from UC Stanislaus, and he's the one that attended Modesto Junior College. So with that, I also ditto your remarks, Curtis. We never quite seen eye to eye together on some things, but it all worked out in the end, I think. And so congratulations, and hope your future endeavor is just as exciting as this past year was for you. Other than attending the Finance Committee and the agenda reviews, I attended a track meet over at the stadium, and where people came from all over the district and outside areas. I also attended the athletic fest that was held, and spent a little time with the chancellor. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so it was a slower month, but I had a great lunch with Shelley. Meetings with Henry. I went to the Pinnacle Forum breakfast with Henry. I gone to the board debriefs. We had a sort of a subcommittee meeting to evaluate our board self-evaluation survey. And that was with Ann and Nancy. The board preview meeting. And also the MJC Foundation meeting yesterday afternoon, which has exciting things happening with our centennial coming up. So I'd like to reiterate all the nice words for Curtis. I've really enjoyed getting to know you better. And I'm sorry you're not going to be up here anymore. But I know Chad too, and that'll be fun too. So anyway, our meeting is down to the last page here. I am going to adjourn our meeting in a second, but our next meeting is Wednesday, July 10th. Closed session will begin at 3:30 and open session at 5:30. Thank you all for being here and for all the input, and we appreciate it a lot. Meeting is adjourned.